It's gotta hit just right. Yeah, just like that. There we go. Hold on.
I'm pretty sure you're live right now.
Yep, we're live right now. Here we go. Here we go.
Handle business, not a joke. Yeah, manners missing. Travel different, no control. Yeah, time to listen. Time to zip it, keep it
Good
close.
stuff. Good stuff. All right, guys. Welcome to Community with Closures. We have an amazing guest on here. Trevor Steele in the house. We go way back. You guys all know him. Trevor Steele. Wow, can't even talk. Trevor Steele in the house. Dude, thanks for being on, man. Like, this is exciting because we've been doing a series, right? But we're gonna change it up a little bit and bring some fire because we want to hear your story. And you got a lot, dude. A lot. You're very humble. You're doing amazing things. And I'm excited to hear it. I've heard bits and pieces, but I'm excited. So, yeah, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's been a long road for us, both of us.
I know it, man. I know. We were talking about 2008, man, back in the roundtable days.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. I mean, that was 17 years ago.
Man, I don't even like saying that out loud, honestly.
I know. It's like, oh, wait, hold on. So when people ask me how old I am, right, I'm like, dude, I'm at level 38.
Yeah.
Right? And I always get it wrong, though, because my wife's like, no, you're level 37. And I'm like, I don't even count anymore.
Yeah,
like, I don't even know.
Past 30, does it really matter? I don't know.
Right?
I wouldn't know because I'm much younger than you. Clearly.
Clearly.
No, I'm 37, I think.
Nice. Good stuff, man. Well, yeah, so I'm pumped to hear about it. We've had a crazy journey. I know your journey is probably more crazier than mine. So, yeah, dude, let's talk about from 2008. You were I mean, we were like babies. I don't even know.
Yeah.
We were young.
Yeah, I was king of my own world in 2008. You couldn't tell me anything, and I was dominating my world, and I felt really good about where I was. And then God had different plans for me, and like I said, I've got a long story.
Yes. Well, I want to hear it. So we got 30 minutes, jam-packed like always, every Wednesday. So, yeah, man, we want to jump into it because I remember you were on the board. Like, you were, I mean, dude, I looked up to you because I was young, you were young, and I'm like, dude, you were, like, crushing it, absolutely crushing it. So tell me about that. What did that look like?
Yeah, so everything's relative, right? We were talking about this right before we jumped on the call. Crushing it in 2008 was not the same as crushing it in 2023, right? Our industry has grown so much. But, I was able to catch the attention of some heavy hitters pretty early on in my business journey. And, if you play your cards right, that's a good thing. But I didn't play my cards right. And I ended up selling out in a situation when I shouldn't have. I mean, I just jumped forward, 15 years really quickly. But, I built the brand, I built the business.
Yeah. I love your brand, by the way, dude. Clean image. Like, yeah. It's a sick brand.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I've had it since 2002. So quite a long time. No, that's not true. Not 2002. I'm sorry. 2000. Yeah, no, you know what? I don't even know when my wife isn't here. She's got to tell you. I think we have that in common. I have no idea what year it was. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But, I actually dropped out of high school to pursue this business. And I was one of those kids that, and maybe I still am, one of those people that was never supposed to amount to anything. We have that in common as well.
Yeah.
There were a lot of eyes on me, and they were all expecting very little. That might have been a driving force for me. There might be a chip on my shoulder. I'm not sure, but there's a good chance. And so that was that's kind of what started it all. And then I built the business. I had 2 employees before before I even got my, I actually signed up as a homeschooler and went to tech for 2 years and got a diploma a few months before everybody else did in my grade. So I kind of cheated the system there, and I had 2 employees, full-time employees at the time. And so, that's another common theme in my life, was finding creative ways to kind of cheat the system and circumvent the norm, if you will. And so that's kind of led my growth in my different industries. So when I finally sold it in 2016. It might have been the end of 2015, something like that. And I signed a contract to go to work for them for 3 years. And of course, there was a profit sharing scenario, and there was a significant salary at the time. We were doing really well as far as cash flow. But in order for me to get to that cash flow, I made a lot of big mistakes in business. And so, a lot of people ask me, well, why'd you sell? Why'd you sell? Well, I was pinned against a wall financially. The cash flow was there, but the damage had already been done. So the IRS was knocking on my door. Just there was no real way out other than trying to sell. So opportunity came, and I took it, and ended up, I'm still dealing with it, so I'm not going to give too many details publicly. But essentially what I hand wrote in the contract, was, in the case of a separation of any kind, I get the name Clean Image back, which is literally, I hand wrote it and then initialed it, signed it. He signed it, and we shook hands and made a deal right there at the desk, which was, certainly an iconic moment in my life, but it backfired pretty quickly, and we ended up in lawsuits. And if you asked him, he'd say I owe him money. And if you ask me, I'd say he owes me money. And, courts have deliberated on 3 separate occasions, but he keeps changing, going back to court, keeps fighting it. So that's just kind of where we are. It's been a long road, but through that process, the court ordered me not to compete. And this was in 2016. I was ordered not to compete. So I had to shift gears and go from, however many years that was, over a decade of being in one industry in a small town. I had to shift gears and figure out what the heck am I going to do, which is where this came into play. I got my real estate license. We started a real estate company soon after, and then found a little bit of success starting the year 2019. We've started to really find some success, and then all of a sudden COVID hits. And so we're freaking out, right? Okay, COVID's going to destroy the real estate market. What are we going to do? And then it just happened that my 3-year non-compete with the company that I sold to had just ended. So here we are, full circumvent, back to starting Clean Image pressure washing back up. And now I'm on the end of my 3rd season. We're going into the Christmas light season. So this is year 3 for us. And both businesses took off at the same time, and it's just been a wild ride ever since. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
Holy moly. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to unpack right there, man. I know some you can't talk about, but let's talk about where, it came back into play, right? In that 2020 area. I know, some people say business was great, right? 2020, 2021, 2022. It was really good for a lot of people. Some people were like, shoot, they didn't want people going inside. So like window cleaning was off the chart. So what were some of those key factors, would you say? I mean, with what right, starting all over again, I think your success was a lot faster growth. So what would you say for viewers, I guess you'd say, people watching, what were some of those things that you did to fast track that, or make it go?
Yeah, so I think about this a lot, actually. I'll be careful not to say too much on your stuff. I don't know. But I think about, coaching and going to things like Sales Boost and making sure you go to the Huge and sign up with. So I've been coaching with Howard Partridge for the last year. He's been my coach, and actually his son Christian is my coach. And just through that process over the last year, just dialing in the things that, I kind of ignored in the previous journey that I was in. It's just been eye-opening for me. You know, I've always been kind of stubborn. And who's that? Who's good evening? Just blank face. Hey,
I
blank
know.
face.
Facebook user.
Yeah. Hey, Facebook user. Welcome. Welcome. But yeah, basically it was just when I realized I can't do this alone and there's no reason I should. And my whole mentality changed because I no longer needed the revenue from that business because I had this business that was doing well. And so I
Yeah.
just kind of treated it different this go around, where I wasn't going to force anything. I was going to follow the systems, listen to the people that are smarter than me, do what they say, you know, avoid the pitfalls that I'd seen in the past and all the failures that I'd run into. You know, for perfect examples, I tried to do my own payroll for 3 years the first time. And that's one of the big things that got me in trouble, you know. So it's like, okay, I'm not doing payroll ever again, right? So this time around, I didn't do payroll. This time around, I hired a CFO right out of the gate. This time around, I started paying myself a salary immediately, right?
Yes.
So, and also this time around, and everybody seems to be confused that this is even possible, but it is 100% possible. I didn't pick up a gun, you know, I didn't pressure wash at all. I started hiring people right out of the gate, and
Love that.
there definitely needs to be some capital to pull that off. You know, it's not something you can do without. So I don't want to, you know, toot my horn or say that I did something special. Truth is that the real estate sustained that and made that possible. So it's not something you want to. Don't take that as a recommendation if you don't have money in the bank. It's probably not the best plan of action.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, right? Like for people watching, it's like if you put the people in place, the money will come.
Right.
And that's what happens. And like if
Thanks.
you don't do the things like the book Rocket Fuel, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you aren't good at those things, don't do them, you know? And it's easy to say, right? It's easy to say because we can say that, but it's like, okay, how do I pay that person to run payroll? How do I pay that person to be the admin? But I'm telling you, if you put the people in place in your company, the company will grow and it will pay for that person. You know, for
Absolutely.
me, it was that office manager. I was so scared. I'm like, how are we going to pay this office person? Right. And once we did it, guess what? We grew 30%. And it was huge because then it freed me up to do what I needed to do. And
Mm-hmm.
you, what would you say you are good at in your business?
Uh, I think branding and marketing is something that's always come natural to me. I enjoy that side of it. I like to sit behind the desk and kind of puppeteer. You know, I built my own websites. That's another thing that I delayed way too long. I try to do everything myself because I like being in control of the brand and the identity and all this stuff. But in reality, I should have hired Click Call Sell 3 years ago. I should have hired Collaborate as soon as I met David. You know, it's like I should have hired a VA the moment I met Melody or Angela. You know, it's those
Yep.
things. Instead, I always have to learn the hard way. And so I really admire you in the sense, and I talk about you all the time, even on my podcast, because I mean, everybody knows that Pat Clark's a humble person, but what you might not know about Pat is he just goes all in with what the pro tells him to do, right? What Pat's really good at is listening to people that have done it before him. And I think that if I would have listened sooner, me and you might be sitting in the same seat, but we're not sitting in the same seat. And you know, I think I don't know, maybe God's got big plans for me, but I think if I would have just listened sooner, you know, it would have been a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, it's tough though because you know, like the way I explain it is like you go up this ladder. You got one ladder, right? You go up the ladder, you get above the clouds, and then you meet somebody. It might be a relationship, it might be, you know, an opportunity, but now you have two ladders, right? And then you have the option of going up those ladders, but you need somebody that is there guiding, you know what I mean? Like that's been there before, that's went up the mountain. And it's
Yeah.
definitely tough for sure. Because I've went up the wrong ladder a lot of times. Like me and my wife will talk about it. We're like, I think we're doing it the hardest way possible, right?
Yeah.
It's like the GPS is taking us the longest way. Like we know there's an easier way.
Yeah. how many failures do I have to encounter before I finally make it? I guess it's just part of the ride. But
It
I
is.
think the key, at least it has been for me, is I just never gave up. And that's if
That's
I
it.
were going to say there was one thing that led to where I am right now currently, that's the only thing. My entire universe is telling me, even the closest to me are saying, you need to stop. This isn't you. It's not going to work out. You got to stop. You're just digging a hole. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. And it doesn't matter who tells me that. This is a calling from God to me, and I'm going to pursue it. And it tends to pay off when I stop trying to force doors to open. As
Yeah.
soon as I start getting stubborn and start leaning into that door, man, I don't know how many deadbolts have to be put on a door for me to realize it's not going to open, but
I'm with you there, man. I'm with you there 100%. Because you're right. When it's like, it's not meant to be, but it's like, I don't know, when you want to get that car, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, this is the car, this is it. But there's going to be more cars just like it, you know what I mean? But you're like, nope, I'm going to make it work. And then the guy's like, no, it can't show up. And like, you force it. And then all of a sudden you get the car, and guess what? Freaking transmission goes out,
yeah.
or something else. And you're like, dang it, what the heck? So I definitely get what you're saying there. It's like, it's tough.
Yeah. So I think if I could give any advice to someone who feels stuck or feels like they're kind of grinding their wheels a little bit, I would say back up and call somebody. You don't know all the answers. You don't have it figured out. Nobody does, and people genuinely like to help you if you are coming from a real place. And so I think, man, I wish I'd figured that out sooner, but here we are.
Hey, but you got it now, and you're just gonna fast track it. But you're right, man. Like, call. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to know everything. I think
Right.
and I was just listening to another podcast, and they had a poem at the end, and it was talking about all the struggles and the sharpening of the sword, right? And like, it makes you who you are today. It shapes you for what's to come. You know what I mean? Because business it's not easy. And for people just getting into business, that, yeah, sure, you can make your customer happy, you can wash a house, you can install windows, you can do whatever you want to do, but then you have the accounting part of it, then you have the advertising, the marketing. There's so many facets of it. You have to build yourself a team,
Yeah.
hands down.
So let's talk about the sales side of it, because right now I'm struggling with that. I told you a little bit about my story.
Yes.
I put about 3 or 4 months into this guy, extensive training. I mean, I even had the guys at Howard Partridge involved in it, and real money and time. And then just boom, out of the blue, he quit. Says it was too stressful for him. His anxiety was too high.
Mhm.
I'm like, this was my first sales guy, right? I'm like, I went to Sales Boost, following the systems. I'm going to listen to the people that are doing this before me, because, marketing and branding was my thing, and I can get the phone to ring. But I'm
Yes.
not, my gift is not going out and bringing the work in, the old fashioned way. So I was reaching out to get sales training.
Yeah.
So
So
what do you
let's
do?
unpack that. A little bit. So a lot of times when people have one salesperson, and I've seen this over and over again, and I don't know if you did this or not, but we're going to unpack it. But you get one sales guy, and you start giving him all your leads, right? And I'm just going to go overview, and then we'll dive into what your situation is. So what I've seen is they get one sales guy, and they're like, great. They give them one territory, and they feed them all the leads. And that's very scary, because you don't know what that person's done. Yes, you've done training. Yes, you've role played, right? A little bit. And then you
Mhm.
give all your leads, all your money in to this one person. And I really think you need to split it up, where you have to build it to the model. So I talk about that. Build it to the model. So if you have, an hour bubble, say you need 4 territories, and you might only have one sales guy at this time. So you give him 2 territories, and then you take 2 that are closest to the office, so you can still do your, checking on the guys, doing your morning huddles. You can still do that stuff, because you don't have a whole team yet. And so, with that being said, you still have to run weekly, like at least once, but if not once, twice a week meetings. And in the very beginning, you want to call that guy and role play at the end of the day. How did the quotes go? Why didn't they close? Right. And I talk about Flock a lot, where we have a communication where they
Yep.
have to type in every day, what they closed, what package, how much, the name. And if they didn't close, why didn't they close? Was it one legger? What they say. I got to talk to the husband and wife. Okay, great. What'd you do to come back that? Right. And then we'll role play. And so, again, I was listening to this podcast and they were talking about role playing, and we don't do it enough, right, to those salespeople. And sometimes salespeople like yours said he's got a lot of anxiety. So, where's that coming from? Was it, and I don't know, but I'm just saying, was it not enough like one on one time with him? Was it not enough tools to give them, to build a bigger house? What do you think it was? Did you do an exit interview?
Yeah, we had an exit interview for sure, but I
Okay.
won't go into those details either. But no, we spent every day together. It
Okay.
was, yeah, honestly, the flags were there, the red flags, and I should have cut
Okay.
it sooner. Honestly, he should have cut it sooner. And I think he wasn't being honest with me about his disc assessment was perfect. He fit in perfect. He was
Okay.
an ID, so he should have
Mm-hmm.
been. But there's some other things, and I'm not going to go into detail about it. But there's just some other things that came into play here, and it just wouldn't work out. But we were doing daily meetings because this is my first, right? I was
Yep.
showing, we have all the scripts, all the playbook is there.
Mm-hmm.
I showed him how to do estimates, how to approach the home, how to, everything, all the details, a lot of the sales boost stuff. And at the end of the day, he did about 82 estimates in a couple of weeks. Big
Okay.
number. Well, in 3 weeks. And I thought he was following the systems, the follow-up procedures and everything. The basically he just wasn't, right? And that's my fault that I didn't have a system in place to see that before it was too late. So
Mm-hmm.
he just became overwhelmed and wanted to get out. And so a lot of it is my fault for sure.
Yeah.
So am I answering your question? Is that making sense?
Yeah. But it sounds like, so when he's not following the systems, and this is where role playing comes into hand, right? So my 3 weeks, and this is the way I do it. And again, you don't have to follow it, but this is the way I do it. So the 3 weeks is basically you're riding with somebody. It could be myself, it could be another top territory manager, but you're riding with somebody. Usually on the second week. First week is all video training. We're going over scripts. We're still attending the sales meetings every week, and then they're riding along with a territory manager, and then they go out on the job sites because they got to believe in what they sell. And then on the third week, then they're on their own. So I tell them, like, I'm not your babysitter. We're giving you the tools and everything. This is your business. And I've told all my guys this, that I'm not here to babysit you. You have to do these things. We have the marketing program, right? We have the system to get you money. As long as you follow these things. Now we do track these, and we will, present these in the sales meetings. And we'll usually do 2 in the beginning, and then we'll, if they're having an issue or something, then we'll talk every evening. But I try not to give them too much because then they're like, whoa, hold on, you're like babysitting, right? And
Yeah.
nobody really wants to be babysat, I guess. So with you saying that he wasn't following the system, but you were role playing, we role play to make sure they're saying what they're doing because, but again, they're salespeople, so they can talk the talk, but can they walk the walk? And that's
Right.
why we usually call the customer, hey, how did it go? And we try to get reviews too. This is a huge point. Is getting reviews on the sales appointment is huge because then you know that they're doing what they're doing. But it's not only that, you're getting 2 reviews. You're not just getting it on the backside. Me as a sales rep, hey, with our presentation and, our professionalism from answering the phone, we'd love for you to, because again, they're not seeing the sales rep. I want a review as the rep, right?
Right.
Not just as a technician, because then you're getting 2. Um,
Brilliant.
and so we follow up on those as well. And
Mhm.
then we will call back and say, hey, how did, Trevor do with the quote? Did he measure everything? Did he go over the presentation? Was he fluent? Do you have any questions for me? Right. and I want to make sure that they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's, especially in the beginning, because I want to give them the tools to build a bigger, better house, right? And if I'm not giving them tools and they're not successful, it's a leader, right? It's my fault.
Yeah.
How can I make them successful?
Yeah.
But it goes through all those things, right? The close rate. I want to know how many leads they're running. So you said 83 leads is huge, right? That's a lot of leads because we only give them 5 in a day. We found if they're doing like 6, now if they're doing some Christmas-like quotes, they can do a little bit more because those don't take as long. But every quote should take about an hour to build rapport, do the presentation, and all the things. So if I see them doing quotes, right, they're clocking in on the CRM and they're not doing quotes within an hour or more, then I know they're not following the system. They're just getting, the front door closed in front of them.
Right.
And so it's all that tracking, and it is intense, right? And you can basically, as an owner, I feel like you can have up to 3 reps. And then after 3 reps, you need to have somebody like your office support being sales support as well to help out with your stuff, right? Your duties,
Right.
getting the leads report ready and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So with him, I know he was making good money, you had said, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was making good money. Well, so this is, and I think we talked about this before. I may have messed up too because I agreed to 10% of total revenue in that territory right out of the gate.
Yep.
Because he came, it just, man, I don't know if I just bought in or what, or maybe I wanted that position to be successful so bad that I just went all in on it and believed in him. And so he was paid very well. He was basically getting 10% if he did nothing. He was getting 10% of my total gross in that territory.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
and that
so
was,
we talk about this too. So everybody has a number in between their eyes. And I've seen this over and over again where a territory manager, if you give him, say, gross 10%, whether he sells or not, right? Like gross. And so this might be a blessing in disguise because I've hired lots of people and I've messed up over and over again as a bad leader, right? And I got better. I learned from my mistakes. And so with this, I would say this is actually possibly a good thing. But everybody's got a number in between their eyes. And if they hit that number, they stop. They don't do any more, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you have to know what those top territory managers are. Sometimes there's a guy that's like happy with $40,000 a year, right? I mean, this day and age, it might be 50. And so they will go in a smaller territory. Then you get somebody that's in $100,000, right, in between the eyes. You can't put him in a $50,000 territory. He's
Right.
going to quit because he's not making enough money. You're not giving him enough, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
And so you have to definitely figure out the system, I guess you'd say, for you and your company, and then hire another one. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid to hire another guy and switch it up and say, no, you get commission on what you kill, right? Now, repeats, don't get me wrong. I want them to stay with us for a long time. And so some people don't do this, but if we have a repeat customer and they go out and measure it, I give them the commission on that job.
Right.
Right. Because I want them to stay with us. Some people are like, no, if they're repeat, they're like, I just want to go ahead and do it. Then that's the company money. But I send every rep out again to take pictures and to knock on the neighbor's door, right? Because there's always somebody else to replicate. So I'd pay that guy for that, what I call a layover, right? Like they're going to go with you anyway. Then they can go knock on and get more business.
Yeah. So this was all really, really fresh for us because it was during the transition into Christmas light season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the timing was painful for us to say the least, because basically I had to step back in and just go all in and fill in the shoes and pick up all the drop pieces. And there were a lot, specifically with property managers that we lost thousands of dollars.
Dang.
Because, well, I'm not going to go into that, but we lost a lot of money because the balls were dropped and he just didn't want the job is what it came down to. And I found out the hard way. So during that transition I'm just all in back in the field, working, doing sales, doing quotes and stuff that I hadn't done in, a long time. Because if you remember, we did 90% of our bids online, and after Sales Boost, I decided to try and switch that up. And I started started creating that process with a lot of the Sales Boost content.
Yep.
Updating our pricing and, the pitch and the whole thing, right? The follow-up, the customer journey, improving all of that. and implementing the new sales process into that, right?
Yeah.
We had a decent customer journey, but it was all personal removed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so once we did that, I put it all into him, and it really started to work. I mean, he was doing well. He comes from a pressure washing background, soft washing background, so he knew the lingo, he knew the business, and we saw our average ticket skyrocket immediately skyrocket. And so all signs were pointing to, holy crap, Pat Clark was right. What were we thinking? And so we haven't had time to try and pick up those pieces. And right now I've got one of my he's been with me over a year. One of my techs, my lead techs, I've got him doing quotes and me doing quotes.
Nice.
So we're kind of splitting it up. So we haven't filled that position yet. I did try and hire somebody who I know would be a good fit. That didn't work out. So I'm back to square one, trying to find somebody for our territory.
Yeah.
And then we get one for another territory. It's about 30 minutes north of us, Myrtle Beach. That's our next target. But
love that. But that's it. I mean, getting back into it, you know what I mean? And then figuring out those kinks, right? And rebuilding the systems, because wherever the holes are, that's the beautiful thing, man. Like, you can patch it, you can fix it, right? So the way I explain it is our businesses are like diamonds, right? And when you find a diamond, it's dirty, it's a friggin' rock, and you got to chisel that thing, and then you got to polish that turd. You know what I mean? Like, that's our business.
Yep.
Always. And you're always trying to fix it and make it, improve it. So with that being said, this guy, you know what I mean? You were giving him 10%. Overall, I think is a huge blessing that you can restructure that, right? Because that's going to pull more revenue into your business overall, because that's what it's all about, right? Is like, you got to have that net profit.
Yeah, there were a couple Fridays where we're cutting checks, and I'm looking at it going, are you kidding me? Like, what did you do? It's like, I can't believe I'm cutting this check right now. And I kept thinking it's going to pay off. It's going to pay off. It's the momentum's going to kick in. And it didn't, obviously, but
dang it. Yeah.
So how do you convince somebody to come on board with basically, no money?
So we do $600 to $800 a week for to come on, because we're going to train them, right? So it's going to cost you a good amount of money to train them, and then after that, it's strictly commission. So I tell them, I'm like, look, sky's the limit when you're on commission, or you cap yourself out at a salary. What would you rather do? And if they really are in sales and they're really good, they're commission based, they can do it if they believe in themselves, right? And then that way, it doesn't cost you anything unless they make a sale, right? Yes, it's $800 in the first 3 weeks, but usually on week 3, they're selling more than $800. They should be. And if they're not, they're probably not a good fit.
It's called sales performance pay. Once they excel past their original paycheck, their performance pay only.
That's it. And they should be doing it, right? Like, I've had, older gentlemen doing it, and they can do it. I've had young guys do it, as long as they're following the system. But again, you got to, as the leader, the sales manager, you got to hold them accountable, right? How many buckets of flyers they put out, how many yard sales they put out. It's not just about the sales, it's the effort that's going into it, because sales is everything. It's relationships, it's all that stuff, follow up.
So the guys, your territory managers, are they going to BNI meetings and chamber meetings, and do you have them doing all of that too? And if so, how do you find the time between quotes to do that?
Yeah, so you schedule it in there. So that's where dispatch kind of comes in, right? And then you're like, hey, this territory manager has an event, like say it's a car show or whatever, and they have an event. You just block it off on their calendar. So they're in control of their schedule, right? Like, they're their own person. And so I'm like, hey, we'll sign you up. We'll pay for the BNI group for you to go to, right? We have Touch a Truck that we do here. We just schedule that off, and then we put their appointments around it. That's it. It only takes an hour, right? So
you say they build their own schedule. How does that work? Coordinator answers the phone, takes down the information, and then they reach back out to the client?
No. So that we used to do that where the sales rep would reach back out to the client, but then we would not get them. You got to get them while they're hot. So
Right.
on the calendar, they are masters of their calendar. So if they know they got to go pick up the kids or whatever in the afternoon, or they got a hard stop on Friday, they block off their calendar. So then when the dispatcher
Got it.
CSR is like, hey, I
That's what
actually
we were
have
doing.
4 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we were doing, and it was working.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm excited to get back into it. I'll call you in a month when I find somebody, or a year when I finally find somebody.
Yes. Well, it's not easy, right? Like when you get your first territory manager, it's hard, right? You're learning a whole new thing. I know for me, like I wasn't a manager, you know what I mean? And I'm like, dude, here, sell it, right? Like that's all I knew. Here's a price list. And then they were like not measuring right. I'm like, oh crap, got to build a system for that, right? Then they weren't following up. Then I was like, okay, we got to invent follow-up Friday. And every
Yeah.
Friday we sit down as a team, and then they go through all their, quotes for the whole week, and then we try to close out as many as possible.
Yeah.
And so you just build the system, around it, and then have that education, have the system, I guess you'd say, for them to follow, and then get somebody who's gonna obviously stick, right?
So what I'm going through right now, this process for me is, me with Sales Boost and you and some other coaches, is the process essentially that you went through a decade ago with AC, right? So it's like it goes right back to what we were talking about. If I would have just paid attention, I knew AC probably longer than you did, right? It's like I just didn't open my arms and listen soon enough. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. And I'm going all in with this thing. I'm going to make sure we double down on the sales territory manager, and I'm sure you'll be getting a lot more phone calls from me.
Hey, I'm open to it. So I appreciate you, man. Well, I know we're over time, so I really appreciate that. Staying on here. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Trevor Steele in the house. So make sure you guys follow him. He's got some big things coming, crushing it with Christmas lights. So keep it going, bro. And thanks again for being on, man. Any last things you want to say for the viewers?
Yeah, don't follow me on Facebook because Clean Image Pressure Washing was hacked and that doesn't exist anymore. But you can follow Trevor Steele on Facebook, of course. Reach out to me for anything. If I've been in this business for a long time. It might not sound like it because we talked about all my pain points only, but I'm really good at a lot of things and really bad at even more. So
love it. Well, just don't give up, right?
That's right. Keep pushing.
That's right. All right, guys. Have an amazing night. We'll see you guys next Wednesday. Have an awesome night.